She was secretly sending money to her ex for years. I never thought I'd be writing something like this. But here I am, feeling torn between guilt and confusion, trying to figure out if I'm completely in the wrong. Maybe I am, but I can't help but feel like there's more to the story. I'm 29 and I've been with my boyfriend Jason for about 3 years now. Things between us are good, great, even. We get along well, we've talked about the future, and I'm happy with where we're at. But recently, something has come up that's shaken everything. I guess I should start by explaining some background. Before Jason, I was in a relationship with Mark. We were together for 6 years, and looking back, I can honestly say he was one of the best parts of my life during that time. We met when I was 18, and we were each other's first serious relationship. For most of those years, we were inseparable. We traveled together, we made big plans, and I thought we'd be one of those couples who stuck it out forever. But life doesn't always work out the way we think, right? About 5 years ago, we hit a rough patch. I wouldn't say it was anything specific, more like a series of small things piling up. We'd grown apart in certain ways, and neither of us knew how to fix it. So, after months of trying to salvage things, we decided to break up. It was hard, really hard, but I remember that we both agreed it was the right thing to do. Even after the breakup, though, we stayed in touch. We didn't talk every day, but there was still a sense of friendship between us. We'd check in on each other, occasionally grab coffee, and just catch up. Felt natural. We were both single, and I guess I just didn't want to lose that connection. I don't know how to explain it, but even though we weren't together romantically anymore, it felt like we had some kind of unspoken bond that I wasn't ready to let go of. Then came the money. Started slowly. Just little things. One day, Mark called me, and I could tell something was off in his voice. He'd always been the independent type, so hearing him sound defeated was strange. He told me he was struggling to keep up with rent and bills. His job was unstable, and he hadn't been able to find anything more consistent. He mentioned that he had enough to get by for a couple of weeks, but after that, he wasn't sure how he'd manage. I remember thinking, what if he ends up on the street? What if things get worse? My heart ached for him. And yes, I still cared about him, even if it was just as a friend at that point. So, without giving it too much thought, I decided to help. First, it was a small amount, just enough to cover a couple of bills. I didn't want him to feel like he owed me, so I didn't even ask for details. I just transferred the money and told him to use it however he needed. After that, he called me to thank me. He sounded relieved, almost like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. And honestly, I felt good. Not just because I'd helped, but because I knew I had made a difference. I thought it was a one-time thing. But then, the calls kept coming. Every couple of months, he'd reach out again, and each time, it seemed like he was struggling a little more. His job situation wasn't improving, and his expenses were piling up. So, I kept sending him money, never telling anyone, not even my closest friends. Felt like my little secret. I didn't tell Jason. I didn't know why at first. Maybe I thought he wouldn't understand, or maybe I didn't want to make him uncomfortable. After all, I knew Jason would never feel okay about me helping my ex like that. We had a good relationship, and I didn't want to do anything to jeopardize it. But at the same time, I didn't want Mark to fall through the cracks. It felt like a delicate balance, keeping things between me and Mark, but also maintaining my relationship with Jason. I justified it to myself. I told myself that I was helping a friend, that it wasn't a big deal, and that I wasn't doing anything wrong. It was just money after all. And I didn't expect anything in return. But deep down, I knew I was hiding something. I felt guilty about it, but I kept convincing myself that it wasn't a huge issue. As long as Jason didn't find out, everything would be fine, right? And so, I kept sending money to Mark. Over the years, it became more frequent. Sometimes it was for rent, sometimes it was for groceries. Other times it was just to get by until his next paycheck. But no matter the reason, I was always there, quietly helping him. Then last week things changed. So last week everything came crashing down. It happened on a Saturday morning. Jason and I were having breakfast together. Nothing out of the ordinary. I was sipping my coffee when he suddenly looked up from his phone, a frown settling on his face. I didn't think much of it at first, but then he asked me a question that instantly made my stomach drop. "Hey, what's this?" I looked at him, trying to keep my cool. "What's what?" He handed me his phone, and my heart skipped a beat when I saw the screen. It was a list of my recent bank transfers. There were several small, consistent payments to a name I recognized immediately. Mark. Froze. I could feel the panic creeping up my spine. I didn't even know how to respond. I knew exactly what Jason was seeing, but I hadn't expected it to come up like this. He didn't say anything for a moment, just staring at me, probably waiting for some kind of explanation. I didn't want you to find out like this," I muttered, suddenly aware of how guilty I must have looked. Jason's expression was a mix of confusion and disbelief. "Why were you sending him money?" he asked, his voice quiet but firm. There was no judgment yet, but I could feel the tension building like the calm before a storm. I wanted to explain everything, but the words wouldn't come out. What could I possibly say? "It's not what you think," felt like the most useless thing to say right then. I took a deep breath and finally answered. It's not a big deal, Jason. It's just that Mark and I. Well, we were together for a long time, and after we broke up, he had a rough time. I just wanted to help him out." Jason didn't respond right away. He just sat there, staring at the phone in his hands. I could see his mind racing, but I didn't know what was going through it. I wanted to tell him everything. The whole story, the reasoning behind it all, but my words felt inadequate. How could I explain something that had been going on for so long? "How long has this been going on?" Jason asked, his voice tight. I felt the weight of the question. I didn't want to admit how long it had been, but I couldn't lie about it either. "For about 4 years now," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. Jason's face fell. The silence stretched out between us. I could see that he was hurt, and it felt like a punch to the gut. I hadn't expected him to understand right away, but I didn't expect this level of hurt either. I couldn't stand to see him like this, but I didn't know how to make it better. "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice cracked as he spoke. "Why keep it a secret? I thought we were supposed to be honest with each other." "I was trying to protect you," I said before I could stop myself. "I didn't want you to feel weird about it. I didn't want to make you uncomfortable. It's not like I was hiding something bad. I wasn't doing anything wrong." He shook his head. "It's not about being uncomfortable, it's about trust. We've been together for 3 years, and I thought I knew you. But this feels like a betrayal." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't prepared for that. I thought, if anything, he'd just be confused or disappointed, but I didn't expect him to feel betrayed. I knew deep down that this was more than just money. It was the secrecy. It was the fact that I kept it from him all this time, and now it was like everything else in our relationship was being questioned. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice breaking. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I was just helping him out, but I never thought it would affect us like this." Jason stood up from the table, running his hands through his hair in frustration. He started pacing, and I could see the anger building inside him. I wanted to reach out to explain myself better, but I was too afraid of making things worse. "How could you think this wouldn't affect us?" he asked, his tone sharp. "You were helping your ex behind my back for years. We were in a relationship, and you kept this secret from me." "I never wanted to hurt you," I whispered, feeling completely overwhelmed. "I never wanted you to feel like I was choosing him over you. That's not what this was about at all." He looked at me then. His eyes filled with a mix of hurt and anger. "It's not about choosing him over me, but about hiding something so important. I don't even know if I can trust you right now." Those words stung more than I expected. Trust. I had always thought that was something solid between us, something we both valued. But now, I could see how my actions had shattered that foundation. "I'll understand if you need some time to think about all of this," I said quietly, my heart sinking. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. But I also need you to know that I care about you. I never wanted it to get to this point." Jason just nodded, not saying anything for a while. The silence between us was deafening. I don't know what's going to happen next. Part of me is terrified that I've ruined everything with Jason. I don't know if he'll ever be able to forgive me for keeping this secret for so long. I thought I was doing the right thing by helping Mark, but now I wonder if it was all just an excuse to hold on to something from my past. So here I am, feeling like I've lost both my past and my present. The next few days were rough. Jason was distant, and it felt like we were living in two completely different worlds. The weight of everything hung in the air between us, unspoken but undeniable. He didn't yell at me or make a scene. He didn't have to. The hurt was clear in his eyes every time he looked at me. And honestly, I didn't know how to make it better. I tried to give him space, thinking that maybe he'd need some time to process everything. But at the same time, I was desperate to fix things, to show him that I was still the same person he had fallen in love with. I knew I'd messed up, but I wasn't sure how to prove that I was still trustworthy. The worst part was the silence. I kept waiting for him to say something, anything, but he just seemed lost in his thoughts. I would text him, but he would respond with one-word answers. When we talked, it was mostly about mundane stuff, plans for dinner or something about work, but we didn't touch on this. Felt like we were both afraid of going there again. I knew I had to apologize properly, but every time I tried, I felt like the words weren't enough. I'm sorry, didn't feel like it could fix something this deep. Then came the breaking point. It was a Tuesday evening. I was in the kitchen making dinner when Jason came in with his phone in his hand. His face was unreadable, and he didn't speak at first, just stared at the screen. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew it wasn't good. "I talked to my friend Eric," he said. His voice calm but tinged with an edge of something I couldn't quite place. He told me something. Something that made me think even more about this. My stomach twisted in an instant. Eric was one of Jason's closest friends, and I'd always thought of him as an ally. I could tell by the way Jason said it that this wasn't going to be a friendly conversation. It felt like he had already made up his mind. "About what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Jason sighed, shaking his head. He said that if the roles were reversed, if I was sending money to an ex for years and didn't tell you, that you'd be livid. You'd feel betrayed. And honestly, he's right. I would too. I opened my mouth to speak but stopped myself. I knew he was right. If I were in his shoes, I'd probably feel the same way. But it didn't make it any easier to hear. The truth was, I had been so focused on protecting my secret and helping Mark that I never stopped to think about how it would feel for Jason. How it would feel for me if the situation were reversed. Jason sat down at the kitchen table and put his phone down in front of me. "I'm not going to lie," he said, voice shaky. "I don't know how to feel about this anymore. I can't just pretend it's okay. And I don't know how to look at you the same way when I feel like I don't even know you anymore." I felt my throat tighten and my heart sank. I hated hearing him say that. I wanted to scream that I wasn't this person, that I had never meant for this to go this far, but I knew that saying that wouldn't fix anything. "Jason," I started, my voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't think it would come to this. I never meant to hurt you. I really thought I was doing the right thing by helping him. I didn't want him to suffer. And I didn't want to tell you because I thought you'd get upset and think I was still holding on to the past, but I wasn't. I'm with you. Love you. I didn't know how to explain this without making you feel like I was choosing him over you." Jason looked at me, and for a moment, I thought he might say something comforting, or at least acknowledge that he understood where I was coming from. But he didn't. Instead, he shook his head again, looking down at the table. "I don't think I can just let this go," he said softly. "I don't know if I can ever trust you the same way again." The words were like a punch to the gut. I knew deep down that he had every right to feel that way. But hearing it come from him, it felt like the floor beneath me was crumbling. "I'm sorry," I repeated, my voice cracking this time. "I never meant for this to destroy what we have. I didn't know how else to handle it. But I never wanted to lose you over this." Jason didn't say anything more. He just stood up, grabbed his jacket, and headed for the door. "I need some space," he said, his voice distant. "I need to think about all of this." And just like that, he was gone. I sat in the kitchen, stunned, not knowing what to do. I wanted to go after him, to beg him to stay and to fix everything, but I knew I couldn't force him to come back. I had pushed him too far. He needed time, and honestly, I didn't know if he would come back. The worst part, I still felt this knot in my stomach, like I wasn't entirely sure if I had done the right thing by telling him everything. But the damage was done. I had tried to hide it, tried to protect him, but now I was the one who was left wondering if I had just ruined everything. The next few days felt like a blur. I spent most of them in a haze, replaying every moment with Jason, wondering if I'd lost him for good. I kept expecting him to come back, to text me or call me, but nothing. It was like I had disappeared from his world. I tried to focus on work, but even that felt pointless. I'd sit at my desk, staring at the screen, and all I could think about was him. What was he doing? Was he thinking about me, or was he better off without me? Was this the end of everything? It wasn't until Friday afternoon that I got a message from him. My heart skipped when I saw his name pop up on my phone, but when I opened it, I immediately felt the coldness in his words. "Jason, I've been thinking. I still need more time. I can't just pretend like everything is fine. We need to talk about this, but I don't know when I'm ready to do that." The words hit me hard. It wasn't a clean break, but it wasn't a sign of hope either. It was like he was dangling the possibility of us working through it, but at the same time, it felt like a warning that I might never get him back the way I had before. I stared at the message for a while, trying to figure out what to do next. I didn't want to push him. I didn't want to force him into a conversation if he wasn't ready for it. But at the same time, the uncertainty was killing me. I needed to know where we stood. I needed some closure, one way or another. I decided to wait. I gave him a couple of days to sort through his thoughts, but it was hard. Every time my phone buzzed, I couldn't help but hope it was him. But there was nothing. No calls, no texts, no sign that he was even thinking about me. Saturday night came, and I found myself standing in front of my mirror, trying to put on some makeup, something to distract me from my thoughts. But the reality of the situation hit me all over again. I could barely look at myself without thinking about the secret I'd kept for so long. I'd lied to the person I loved most, and now it seemed like there might not be a way back. I decided to go for a walk just to clear my head. Maybe I'd run into one of my friends, someone to talk to, someone who could offer a fresh perspective. But as I walked around the neighborhood, I couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness. It was getting late, and I was about to head back home when I spotted Mark walking down the street. Of course, I recognized him immediately. Even though we hadn't seen each other in months, he still looked the same. Taller, but still with that same easy smile that made him so charming back when we were together. He spotted me too, and I saw his expression shift. There was surprise at first, and then something else. Something more guarded, like he wasn't sure if it was okay to approach me. I paused, hesitating for a moment, but then I decided to walk toward him. He seemed like he wanted to say something, but I didn't know if it was the right time for us to talk, especially with everything going on with Jason. "Hey," I said softly, almost unsure of myself. "How have you been?" Mark gave me a half smile. "Good, I guess. You know how life is. Been keeping busy." We stood there for a second, not sure how to bridge the gap that had grown between us in the time since we'd last really spoken. I felt this odd mix of nostalgia and guilt stirring inside me. Mark wasn't a part of my present anymore. I knew that, but the connection was still there, even if it was just in small, quiet ways. "How's everything going with you?" he asked, his tone more casual now. "You look well." I nodded, but there was a tightness in my chest. "Yeah, just a lot going on. Personal stuff." Mark's brow furrowed. "What kind of personal stuff?" For a split second, I considered telling him about everything with Jason, the tension, the fallout. But I didn't. I wasn't sure I could talk about it yet, especially with Mark. I had to face what had happened with Jason first, before I could even think about involving Mark in any of it. "I'll be all right," I said, forcing a smile. It's just some stuff I need to work through. Mark didn't push it. If you ever need to talk, you know where to find me. I felt a pang of guilt at his words. I didn't want him to think that I still needed him, not in that way. But at the same time I realized that, in a way, I did need him. Not romantically, but for comfort. I hadn't realized just how much I missed his presence in my life. I know. Thanks, I said, finally breaking the silence. We stood there for another moment, the weight of the past hanging between us. Then, without another word, we parted ways. I headed back home, feeling a little more confused than before. I hadn't expected to see Mark tonight, and I hadn't expected to feel the way I did afterward. It was like a small, unexpected reminder of the past. But more than that, it made me realize just how much I had been hiding from Jason. And I wasn't sure if that was something I could fix. When I got back to the apartment, Jason still wasn't home. I figured he was probably out with friends, trying to distract himself, just like I had been. The silence in the apartment felt heavy, like an unspoken understanding that things were far from okay. I sat down on the couch, staring at my phone again. It felt like everything was slipping away, and I had no idea how to fix it. By Sunday afternoon, the tension was unbearable. Jason still hadn't come back home, and I couldn't bring myself to reach out again. I had already given him space, and I didn't want to suffocate him by texting him repeatedly. But it felt wrong, everything felt wrong. Every corner of our apartment felt like a reminder of the life we were supposed to have. And it was like I was waiting for him to come back and just make it all right again. But I had no idea if he would. I kept thinking about our conversation the other day, and how much it had hurt to hear him say that he couldn't trust me anymore. That was the one thing I had always thought we had: trust. I had built my whole relationship with Jason on that foundation, and now it was shattered. No matter how many times I apologized, I didn't know if I could repair it. Trust wasn't something that could be fixed with words alone. I took a deep breath and walked over to the couch, sitting down and picking up my phone again. There was still no message from him, not even a call. The silence was deafening, and my mind kept racing. Maybe he was just trying to figure out what he wanted, or maybe he was already moving on from me. I couldn't help but feel like I was losing him. I stared at my phone, debating whether or not I should call him. But every time I reached for it, I hesitated. What if he didn't want to hear from me? What if he needed more time? I didn't want to make him feel cornered, but I didn't know what else to do. And then, just as I was about to give up on the idea, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Jason. Jason, I'm coming by to pick up some of my stuff. We need to talk. I felt my heart drop. My first instinct was to tell him no, to ask for more time. But I knew I couldn't. This was it. We had to face this head-on. No more running from the truth. I quickly replied, "Okay. When?" Jason, "In an hour. I'll be there." I sat in stunned silence for a few moments. My hands were shaking as I put my phone down. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew this conversation was the turning point. It was either going to be the beginning of some kind of resolution or the end of everything. Either way, I had to face it. I decided to clean up a bit. I didn't know why. I guess I was trying to make the space feel less tense. But no matter how much I tidied up or straightened things, I couldn't shake the feeling that things were already beyond repair. When the hour was up, I heard the doorbell ring. My stomach did a flip and I froze. For a second I considered not answering it, but I knew I had to. I had to face whatever was coming. I opened the door, and there he was. Jason, standing in the hallway with a duffel bag in his hand. His expression was unreadable, and he didn't say anything at first, just stood there looking at me. The silence between us felt like an eternity. "Hey," I said softly, almost afraid to break the quiet. "Come in." He nodded, stepping past me into the apartment. He didn't look around or say anything about the place. It was like he was here for business and nothing more. My heart ached at the sight of him. This wasn't how I imagined us being together. This wasn't how I wanted to see him. "Are you sure about this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I thought we could still talk about this. I thought we could work through it. Jason looked at me, and for a second I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Something softer, but it was gone before I could grab hold of it. "I don't know if we can work through it," he said quietly. "I don't know if I can trust you anymore, and that's something I can't just ignore. It's not just about the money, it's about the lies, the secrecy. I thought we were building something real, but now I feel like everything was a lie." His words hit me like a ton of bricks. I could hear the pain in his voice, and it tore me apart. I hadn't meant to lie to him. I hadn't meant to hurt him. I just didn't know how to deal with it, how to explain myself without making everything worse. "I'm sorry," I whispered, feeling my chest tighten. "I never meant for you to feel this way. I didn't think it would come to this." Jason didn't respond at first. He just walked over to the table and set his bag down. He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture that was both familiar and heartbreaking. I knew him well enough to see that he was struggling too. He didn't want to do this. He didn't want to walk away. But I could tell that he was hurting, and I couldn't fix it with just words. "I need some space," he finally said. His voice softer now but still firm. "I can't do this right now. I can't keep pretending everything is okay when it's not." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I understand. I'll give you the space you need." Jason sighed, looking at me one last time. His gaze lingered for a moment, and I saw something in his eyes. Maybe regret, maybe sadness. But he didn't say anything more. He turned to leave, and before the door closed behind him, I heard him speak once more. "I don't know what's going to happen, but I hope you understand why this had to happen." And with that, the door clicked shut. I stood there for a long time, the silence in the apartment suddenly feeling unbearable. I felt like everything was slipping away, and I couldn't hold on to any of it. I wanted to call him back, to beg him to stay, but I knew I had to let him go. He needed space, and I needed to respect that. I was alone again, and this time I wasn't sure if I could fix what I'd broken. The next few days were a blur of emptiness. I tried to keep myself busy, but the weight of everything hung over me like a constant shadow. Jason had left. He needed space, and I had to respect that, but it didn't make it any easier. Every corner of the apartment felt like a reminder of the life we once shared. The laughter, the quiet mornings, the small moments that had made our relationship feel so perfect. And now they felt like distant memories. I couldn't stop thinking about him. The way he had looked at me when he left. There was so much sadness in his eyes, and I couldn't help but wonder if I had destroyed everything. I kept telling myself that he needed time to process it all, that he'd come back when he was ready. But deep down I feared that the damage was done. I spent the days trying to distract myself. I hung out with friends, even though it felt like I was going through the motions. I went to work, trying to focus on anything that wasn't Jason, but my mind always drifted back to him. What was he doing? Was he thinking about me? Was he angry? Had he already decided to move on? It was Thursday evening when I finally got a text from him. "Jason, can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time. My heart skipped in my chest, but my mind raced with all the things we still needed to address. What would he say? What would I say? Would this be the beginning of something, or would it be the final nail in the coffin? I took a deep breath and replied, "Of course." "When?" "Jason, tonight. I'll be there in an hour." I couldn't believe it. An hour. My hands trembled as I put my phone down. I needed to prepare myself, but I didn't know how. I had no idea what was coming, and part of me wanted to curl up in a ball and ignore everything, but I knew that wasn't an option. I paced around the apartment, trying to collect my thoughts. I thought about everything I had done, everything I hadn't told him. I thought about how I had kept this secret for so long and how it had eaten away at me, but how much worse it had made everything once the truth finally came out. There was no going back from this. There was no undoing the damage. When the doorbell rang, my heart almost stopped. I took another deep breath, straightened up, and opened the door. Jason stood there, his hands in his pockets. He didn't look angry, but there was a certain heaviness in his eyes that I couldn't ignore. We stood there for a moment just looking at each other, both of us unsure of how to begin. "I didn't want to do this," he finally said, his voice low. "I didn't want to hurt you. But I can't keep pretending that things are okay." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I know," I whispered. "I know. I don't even know where to start," Jason continued, running his hand through his hair. "It's not just about the money. It's not just about the fact that you were helping Mark. It's that I feel like you were hiding something from me. And it makes me feel like you don't trust me, like I'm not enough." I flinched at his words. I never meant to make him feel like he wasn't enough. In fact, I thought I was doing the opposite. I thought I was protecting him from something that he didn't need to know. But in the end, I had done the exact opposite. I had created a wall between us. "I didn't want to hurt you," I said, my voice shaking. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought if I kept helping Mark, if I kept sending him money, it would keep him from spiraling, that it would keep him from doing something worse. I didn't want you to think I was still holding on to the past. But I see now how wrong that was." Jason took a deep breath, his face softening just slightly. "I get that you were trying to help him. You do. But that doesn't excuse the fact that you were doing it behind my back. You didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. And that hurts. I don't know how to get past that." I looked down at the floor, fighting the tears that threatened to spill over. "I never meant to lie to you. I never meant to hurt you. I thought I was protecting you. But I see now that I was just keeping us both in the dark." For a long time, neither of us said anything. The silence between us felt like a physical thing, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to say something to make it better, but the words just wouldn't come. I had said everything I could, and now it was up to Jason to decide what he wanted to do next. "I don't know what's going to happen next," Jason finally said, breaking the silence. "I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I can trust you again. But I'm not ready to give up on us. Not yet." My heart clenched at his words. It wasn't a promise that things would be okay. But it wasn't a rejection either. It was the smallest glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could work through this. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away," I said quietly. "But I'll do whatever it takes. I'll prove to you that I'm here, that I'm committed to us. I'll never keep anything from you again." Jason nodded slowly, but his eyes were still guarded. "I need time to think about all of this. I can't just forget what happened. I can't just act like it's all fine." "I understand," I whispered, feeling my throat tighten again. "I'll give you all the time you need. I don't want to lose you." Jason didn't say anything more. He just turned and walked out, leaving me standing there in the doorway, my chest heavy with a mix of hope and uncertainty.